we're recapping day 2 of the state of Georgia versus Edrick Faust trial that is currently taking place in Athens, Clarke County, Georgia. Trigger warning, okay? This case is really sad. They use a lot of trigger words. They describe a lot of trigger things. So please keep that in mind if you plan on watching the trial or watching this video. Also, I got my days mixed up because I'm sleepy. The ME actually testified on day 2, but I talked about him in my day 1 video. So if you want to hear about the ME, Andrew Falzone's testimony, go to my previous video. No, I lied. I forgot something about the ME. Okay, so on redirect, ADA Bolden asked the ME if he was familiar with the phenomenon of drainage. And the ME looked shocked. Like, what kind of question is this? But he did say, yeah, fluids travel by gravity. So yeah. That question was to explain how Chris Melton's DNA ended up on Tara Baker's rectal swab. The state's 4th witness was Catherine Lonstein. She was one of Tara's close friends. If you're unaware, Tara Baker was a first-year law student at UGA when she died, and Catherine Lonstein was also a first-year law student in the same section as Tara Baker. She says because they were in the same section, they spent a lot of time together. Being in the same section means you have all the same classes, you have the same schedule, so they used to study together, and they developed a really close friendship. They only knew each other for about 6 months, so it wasn't like a lot of history, but she did give input on Tara's habits at that time as far as school went. She said that Tara was really cracking down on her studies. She was being very regimented. She had a strict schedule that she followed when it came to going to the library. And that day, or the night before she died, they were studying together, and Catherine left the library earlier than Tara Baker did. And Tara told her, call me when you get home to let me know that you made it home safe. And she says she didn't call her, but Tara called her instead and was like, you didn't call me. And we love those friends. But she did talk to her the night before she died. I'm sure that will probably haunt her. But the state also asked Catherine to describe or to tell the jury what her impression of Tara and Chris's relationship was based on the conversations that she and Tara had. She answered the question. She said that she thought they had a good relationship. Tara never said anything bad about him. She wasn't under the impression that they were going through anything like a rough time. So that ended direct. And when the court asked Attorney Cruz if he had any cross, he says, no cross, but I do have a question. They went up to the bench and they ended up sending the jury out so that they can discuss this in open court. And it was a mess. By the way, this judge does not send the witnesses out of the courtroom while the attorneys are arguing. They just sit right there the whole time. After the jury leaves the courtroom, Attorney Cruz starts to throw a tantrum. I don't really know how else to describe it. It seemed like a tantrum to me. But he's saying that he needs clarification on one of the court's previous rulings. She entered a ruling that he could not elicit testimony or try to enter evidence about anything that Tara Baker said to anyone else. I believe this was residual hearsay. And he says that he feels like he's walking on eggshells because yesterday he was held in contempt because he did something that he didn't even realize he was doing. So now he's trying to be extra careful. And he feels like he is handcuffed because the state doesn't have these same restrictions on them. The judge did not like that word. Now, I don't think Judge Lott likes Attorney Cruz very much. It seems like he is on her last nerve. And she probably doesn't like Edrick Faust either. They did actually enter a motion to recuse her last month. And that motion was denied. Clearly, because she's on the bench. So if you're wondering what's up with them, it's probably that. So in response to his question, the court says that he is mischaracterizing her orders and that the defense has not filed the necessary motions to be able to introduce the evidence they're trying to introduce. And if he would just file the proper motion, then this would be a different conversation. She says a lot more than that, but I couldn't hear it because she would not stop smacking her lips. I don't know why, but I don't like it. But also she answers him, yes, you can ask that same question that the state just asked. You can do that. And he says, okay. But he also said that he didn't want to do any cross, so she doesn't let him. Witness number 5 was just there to authenticate the 911 calls. If you watch the YSL trial, then you're familiar with Miss Latner's. Okay, it's the same situation. I don't think she has to come back a million times. I don't know for sure because I did not listen to her entire testimony, but I really hope she's not in the same situation as Miss Latner's was, because we saw that lady every week for like a year. That is too much. Witness number 6 was Lieutenant Leadall. He was one of the officers that responded to Tara Baker's home on January 19th, 2001. He remembers that when he arrived and entered Tara Baker's room, he saw the cord that was wrapped around her neck was a printer cord, and it was still attached to the printer. And he says that it was extremely violent. They did have to move Tara's body from the bedroom to the living room because of the fire damage. So they moved her and placed her on a sheet that they had purchased and processed her body for trace evidence. He says that he still remembers the smell of her shampoo. The state also asked him about the window screen that other witnesses had testified about, and he does remember seeing the window screen, and he says that it was either bent or broken, and that it was also wet. And it had been raining that day. I'm not sure if it was still raining at this point, but it was a rainy day. He says that the window screen was collected and processed for fingerprints, but it had no evidentiary value. And of course they would say that because that window screen is now lost. He also remembered the front door seeming like it had been wiped down around the peephole area. On cross, Attorney Cruz asked Lieutenant Leadall to open some of the sealed evidence that he collected from the scene. If I'm remembering correctly, he authenticated the envelopes on direct, but I could be wrong. Either way, he hands him a pair of scissors and some gloves so that he can open these envelopes. There were 3 of them that should have contained hair samples. He goes to open these envelopes and they are all empty. All 3 of them. This seemed like a big deal at the time, but then I was like, why would the hair be in the envelope? That doesn't even make any sense. They had to send it to the lab to get tested. Why would they then put it back in the envelope? That is dumb. I don't know why they introduced it in the envelope, but I don't think it was ever supposed to be there because it would have been with the lab. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. The only thing is that when the state got up for redirect, they didn't seem like they knew where the hair was supposed to be. They never said that it was sent off to the lab and it doesn't get put back into this envelope. It's now in a different whatever. They didn't say any of that. So it seemed like the hair should have been there. But I don't think that's correct. And this is the hair that was found in Tara's hand, on her torso, and on her backside. So this is very important. And at least one of those hair samples was either a match to Chris Melton or it could not exclude Chris Melton. After 2 days, my only thought was like, why is Chris Melton not sitting at that defense table? This doesn't make any sense. Everybody keeps talking about Chris. Where's Chris? Where's Chris? Well, Chris is alive and he will be testifying for the state.